We have some big WWE news in today's video. As always, timestamps in the description down below. And don't forget, if you guys want more videos like this, go ahead and click subscribe. We're going to kick things off with Biff Busick, aka Oni Lorcan. You might remember him in WWE NXT. Honestly, I loved watching him work in NXT. I thought he was a great performer. And now something very interesting has been brought up. PW Insider has reported that Biff Busick was seen at the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida this week. And it is due to the fact that he is working in WWE as a guest coach at the Performance Center. Now, obviously, WWE has utilized these types of guest coaches in the past. Definitely people who have worked in WWE have come back to help some of the new people in the company. Now, there is no details as to whether or not Biff Busick is going to be returning to WWE, but of course, this is somebody who is obviously familiar with the Triple H regime, and you have to wonder if Triple H will be making a play for Biff Busick to come back to the company. Now, whether that means he would be wrestling for the company or coaching in the company, that remains to be seen, but I think this could be a good thing for WWE to bring him in as a coach, and I want to make that very clear. Obviously, WWE has a lot of notable returns lately. WWE is reportedly interested in signing quite a few people from AEW when they potentially become free agents. So you have to understand that my argument against AEW and having a bloated roster definitely pertains to WWE as well. We don't want WWE and AEW to sign everybody. However, in the event that if WWE decides to sign Biff Busick as a Performance Center coach, it could be a very, very good move for WWE, especially when you look at what they're trying to do with NXT Global by bringing in different continents into the mix. Obviously, it would make sense to hire more coaches, and whether or not they can travel or whatever it may be, obviously that plays a role into it. But I like Biff Busick. I thought he was a great worker. I think the idea of Biff Busick coming into WWE could be a really good thing, and I think there's a lot of talent who can learn from Biff Busick. His experience is definitely valuable, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. You never know. Maybe WWE brings him in as a coach, maybe wrestle a couple matches here and there, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I want to turn our attention to Raquel Rodriguez. Absolutely love this story. So she was speaking to Steve Fall from NBC Sports Boston, and basically the idea was presented to her as to whether or not WWE should bring in a new mid-card championship for the women's division. And this is something that she 100% supports. She says that she thinks it would be so great for the women's division, especially because there's so much diversity in the women's division. We have women from all over the world, all over the country, from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and she thinks having an intercontinental championship or having a North American championship for the women's division would be a huge leap forward for the division in general. She also says, personally, I do feel like that it is something that is possible and something that could possibly happening in the near future. So I'm looking forward to that and possibly, making new history. Now, we have talked about this before on the channel. There were rumors that WWE might introduce a mid-card championship belt for the women's division. Honestly, it makes sense when you consider WWE having the IC title and, of course, the United States Championship, and then obviously in NXT they have the North American Championship. Now, originally the rumors suggested that if WWE were to bring in a mid-card championship belt for the women, it would be something that they do in NXT first before they consider doing it on the main roster. Now, there's two sides of this argument that I think a lot of people are going to be making. One is you have Raw and SmackDown. So there's mid-card championship belts, there's tag team title belts for each show. Obviously, WWE unified the World Championship and the tag team championship belt. But as of right now, when you look at the tag titles, they are technically still Raw and SmackDown tag titles. The idea of WWE introducing two more championship belts, it kind of sounds like a lot of championship belts. Honestly, I feel like they have so many championship belts as is. It's something that it might be a little too much of. However, I also want to make it very clear, WWE is putting a huge emphasis on the women's division. Triple H has made a very big change into WWE's women's division, and the focus on the women's division, I think it could benefit from having mid-card title belts, right? So I understand both sides of the argument. I also think NXT has a great women's division, so introducing a championship for the women there would be a good start. I also want to point something out that I thought was very interesting here, and that is the fact that we still don't know if WWE has plans to de-unify those title belts, because if WWE is looking at de-unifying those belts, it might not make a lot of sense. But if WWE decides to unify the IC and the US title, if they decide to keep the world titles unified, if they keep the tag titles unified, well, you can also keep in mind that they have they would have to unify the women's championship belt. But if you go that route, then I can't see it being a problem by introducing a mid-card championship belt for the women. So it's going to be very interesting to see how WWE goes about this. Obviously, this is an idea that talent support. It's something I do support, but I understand the spectrum of when you have too many championship belts, doesn't that devalue the meaning of a championship? And that totally makes sense. And for our final topic of today's video, guys, WWE is making the change. LA Knight is now back in play. Very, very interesting report here from, realistically, this is a story coming from WWE that I find to be interesting. PW Insider has announced that Max Dupree is now listed as LA Knight on the internal roster. So we've known for a minute that WWE was planning on doing some name changes. Some talent are expected name changes. Some of them are going back to previous gimmicks, whatever it may be. I'm really curious to see how WWE handles this from the logical standpoint, right? Max Dupree, we've seen over time on SmackDown, he has been teasing the split. He walked away. He punched Mansoor. It makes a lot of sense for WWE to do this because LA Knight is a better character than Max Dupree. I know I've been wrong about that. I thought maybe Max Dupree had a lot of potential as a manager, but WWE and Vince McMahon's vision just wasn't there. So the idea that Triple H is not afraid to go back to things that were working previously, I appreciate that. However, there is going to be a very big test here when it comes to Triple H and how they decide to showcase the new LA Knight. There's going to be a lot of pressure on WWE to make sure that they get this character right, and also the logical explanation of him going back to LA Knight, because you're talking about a name change. So I'm very curious to see how WWE tries to go about this. But yes, I am very excited about this change, and it is a big change because more name changes are expected. Another person that a lot of people need to pay attention to is Nikki, a.s.h. She's thrown away the mask. We know at this point there are plans for her to revert back to her NXT character. I think that's a great move as well. But ultimately, we got to talk about logic here. WWE has become a lot more logical lately, but when it comes to name changes, it is kind of scary to see what they could potentially do here. Is it good? Is it bad? Only time will tell. But I am excited about LA Knight coming back. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. As always, I'm going to keep you guys updated with everything happening in pro wrestling, so go ahead and click that subscribe button. Live streams, video on demand, and of course shorts. A lot of content on this channel. You don't want to miss it.